great to be back at CTO Sydney. Usually I've been in transit to one of the other cities or just getting here. I actually don't like to speak at a conference that I'm involved in organizing. I think it's rather rude. I'm subbing for a very talented local lady who employer yanked her at the last moment. And I just want to say that to all of us in the room, we have a challenge to make sure that we have more females in this room in the future. So if you know of people that are, should be here, please let us know. We're happy to try and chase them down. And if you happen to be in the position of looking to bring along new technical leaders, please make sure that you understand that diversity is a major contribution to success. So I'll stop there. I think we all know what the message is. Since I did get patched in here, it's actually quite interesting. There are three of us here who have a background. Alan Wersbrock, well, four of us. We include Rebecca in the object world. I've traveled many paths together, and Alan and myself, along with Gil, have worked a lot in runtimes, as well as tool chains and tools. So I was busy trying to figure out, okay, what do I talk about given, so I don't end up causing things to be repeated 3 times. So I probably won't get through all these things, but basically I just want to talk about sort of leadership and experience. I've been at this for a long time, and people always ask me, I do a lot of work with startup groups and so on. My first question is, what's the difference between a founder and an entrepreneur? And those that can't answer what the entrepreneur does, I just tell them to stop and go find another company to work for, because being a founder, it just makes you into a flounder. Right? You have to be an entrepreneur to be successful, and many CTOs in startups are very much the external salesperson. But basically, a company is pretty simple. You need to be able to build things, you need to be able to sell them, and you need to be able to get along. And as an investor and advisor, I spend a lot of time walking in and walking out saying, too bad, 2 out of 3 ain't enough. So often your job is 2 of these. Sometimes it's 3, especially if you're in a smaller organization. When you get into a larger organization, all you can do is try and peddle influence, and that gets very hard. I worked as an executive for IBM when we built we sold them, built them Smalltalk, and then we built the Java and Eclipse IDEs, and influencing that organization is challenging. But we did build something called the Distinguished Engineering Structure, which is common in many organizations in the US, and I'll mention that briefly. So you'll get called many things, and CTO is what we call this, but we're really talking about senior technical leadership. And in my world, technical is an important part of that. I don't believe you can lead an engineering team, and particularly lead new product development, without being deeply technical. You can support it, you can help younger people come along, you can be a great leader, but you need to be technical. There are many kinds of hats, and really it depends. Today I'm a chief scientist. Basically, that's as you get older and more useless. You get to be, I was a CEO and I became a CTO, and then I get to be a chief scientist, and that's very close to completely irrelevant. Right? Like Gil, I actually strongly support the notion that basically there should be one person in charge, that all the engineers should report to the head of engineering, which may be the CTO in some organizations, particularly smaller ones. And that it's essentially the job of the CTO really to be a playing coach, really to basically come in and out. And my favorite My team is often a group of young hires. In Canada, we have this wonderful thing called co-op education, which I wish Australia did. It means you go to school for 4 months, then you work for 4 months and get paid. You graduate, do a four-year degree in 5 years, and graduate with 2 full years of work experience. It's an incredible way to recruit, much more efficient, and they really understand. And you don't have to have professors trying to figure out what software engineering is and trying to teach it. Right? So, we really want to have the hat be a very technical hat, and we really want to talk about this vision thing, because if the one thing that a CTO, I believe, should have is be the person who's driving towards that future, often on a very dangerous road, making lots of mistakes. Fail fast is one of the measures of a successful R&D organization. How quickly can we do this wrong and learn from it? Very, very important. And to the last sort of question, the answer is your estimate should always include the time to do the necessary exploration. So if you actually fill your bucket 100% full, you deserve the pain for not being able to do any R&D. You need to build it into everyone's plan so they have this time to think, as well as go on vacation and other things that are important, so that they're in a healthy state of mind to do that. Now, it's very important, the vision thing, some people have it and some don't. There are just some people who cannot really see the future. I feel badly for those companies, but I don't have a solution for you. I don't know, today innovation is so meaningless, governments have departments for it. I don't believe going to innovation therapy is going to help you. But it's very important that you have this inquisitive mind, this curiosity, that you live in future space in some sense. You also live in the past because, again, to reinforce skill, most things that happen in our industry are really things that are timed for now, but actually were thought of in many pieces before, with some innovations for now and more for tomorrow. So it's very important to always be asking yourself, is this the best way we can do it? Can we not do these things faster? Why are we hiring all these extra people? Can we do more with fewer people? Because the hell of software is dependencies. Dependencies are made by people. Right? So one of the things we've always worked on is how can we get this done with fewer people? And inevitably, whenever we could do something with fewer people, we got better results. And we actually understood what we were doing, and we had a smaller code base. Because in the end, the code you ship is still the code you fix. So one of our badges of honor is shipping less code in every release. So if you can ship less code in a release, then you should be really proud of yourself. Hopefully it has more functionality. But it may also get rid of functionality you don't use anyway, so still fine. I think it's very important to do what I call thought experiments. What happens, if this wasn't true, right? There seems to be a lot of physicists thinking about what happens and what's impossible these days, given what's happened in the cosmos. There were lots of things that people didn't believe. I remember when I first met Alan and Rebecca working at Tektronix Tech Labs. They were working in Smalltalk. And I was very fortunate. This was in the days when OOPSLA started, the object-oriented programming, just before the rage. And they had this idea that they could put, Smalltalk inside an oscilloscope, which was clearly a ridiculous idea. And the people in Tech Labs even sort of, some questioned it. Alan and Rebecca didn't. And then they came to this strange Canadian company that was doing embedded systems, which was us. And together, we've had one of the most exciting times with CRC cards and RDD, which I always called Rebecca-driven design. She's the only person of all those original authors in design who actually did it. The rest were busy writing books and selling courses, but Rebecca did everything before she wrote about it, and still does. So it's a privilege to have her today. we actually built in 1988, because of that crazy will to do the impossible, a complete family of oscilloscopes, which ran in 512K of ROM, and the big one had 64K of RAM. The C diagnostics were 2 megs, but the entire product was a quarter that size. And this was really just done because of the challenge. Could you do this? And I've always been inspired by Seymour Cray. Hire them young, they don't know it can't be done. And every time I start a new company, I hire second-year students from this co-op program. And by the time they graduate, they're very talented. It's very hard to hire old people to do new things. It's possible. They exist. My advice there, since I'm mentioning this now, is if you really want to hire experienced people, try and hire a team that know each other. Try and get 3 or 4 people that have worked as a team, because they can come and they have their previous culture and relationships, and even if you distribute them in a large company, they can pop their head up and go, hey, Alan, is it me or is this company really screwed up? Or I've got some cool stuff over here. So if you're looking for experienced people, the only trick I know is to try and pick a group of talented people and hire them all together. Don't hire more than 4. At least I've not successfully done that, so that's my rule. But I think it's a very important one. The other thing is that I used to use this phrase, only the paranoid survive. Unfortunately, this very successful CEO of Intel wrote a book on it, so I don't have the trademark anymore. But be sure you live in fear and respect of your competitors. Many times people, tell me, look, we're on top of it, we're way better, we all did our PhD and went to Data 61, or wherever your most arrogant institution is. That would, in Canada, that would be like going to Waterloo's top research lab, or the Vector Institute if you're doing ML. It's important that you see these people as competitors, as good, but not live in fear of them. But ignorance, if you're the only people in the market, if you're the best, then you're believing your own BS, right? So it's very, very important to understand your competitors, how they do things, their technology, and often some of your competitors make excellent employees, as well as intelligent sources. Oh my God, they're that stupid back there. Oh, that's really great. I'm glad to know that they're doing that. Often you live in irrational fear. I'm from Ottawa, Canada, a place where people are, too stupid to do all the smart things that people in California can do. That don't have, didn't go to Stanford or MIT, but have a great passion for building software together. And a group of very young people, at least 3 times, have built successful businesses with very little help from me in the most part, except getting out of their way and trying some wild and crazy things. So important to look at your competitors and have an understanding. I think it's obvious leadership matters, whether it's a country or a business. We have a leadership crisis. Integrity, standing by your values, leading by example, executing with transparency, the wisdom of experience, the ability to articulate the vision. For our original company, OTI, basically the vision was very simple. We basically have this thing called objects everywhere, which we called Object Utopia, which we articulated in the early 80s. And that translated into, small talk, mainframe to a watch. We didn't get to the watch, but we got to the pager. It was a very simple message, and visions need to be very simple because people then have an idea of what the goal is. It's not that you're going to get there or fulfill the vision, it's that you've got a path that inspires people to go and attack a problem. In the case of the most recent thing where I'm doing high performance vector analytics, basically it was analytics from the embedded system to the cloud, or now it's called edge, edge to the cloud. I wish I could say I've been doing different things, but I think I've been doing the same one-trick pony for a while, which is true of a few of us, I think. Often, the best thing you can do as a leader is come up with the best wrong answer. Right answers means there's winners and losers. The key thing about an executive is that they come up with the best wrong answer. Progress is a sequence of decisions. There's one thing that engineers hate is not being able to get a decision. So we had a rule in the companies that I've been in that basically anything, you could get an answer to any question within 24 hours. You just had to email it to the executive, and you would get guarantee you get your answer in 24 hours. The answer might be no way, but you would get it. Even young summer students would feel, why do we do this thing? We should do this differently. They were often right. If you don't have metrics in your company, take your summer students out for beer. They will tell you a lot. Again, young people are curious, they're innocent, and they're very observant. Don't undervalue how important they are. Most of the innovations that I've been involved with have had people, in their mid-20s involved in doing significant things. It's very important to have age and computational diversity in your organization. So decision making. Need to decide quickly, monitor it, and recognize that progress is a sequence of decisions. Some will be wrong. If you're not making decisions quickly, then that's a metric where the whole organization is failing. So it's one of the things I like to measure. Estimates are a distribution. You should track estimates because building software on time is very, very important. Customers like it when you deliver software on time, when you deliver it continuously. People need to learn how to estimate, they need to train. So, forget all this story point bogus nonsense, right? Basically, in the end, everything is dollars and time and people. So it's great, it's great to have story points, training wheels, but sometimes you have to grow up and be an adult and be responsible and accountable because we have to ship it, collect the revenue, and so on. There are techniques for doing this that are very good. Most people have spent a lot of time ignoring how to do good estimates. It's very important because if you can't estimate your engineering resource properly, it means you lose all your time for your R&D resources because that's what sucks it up. So it's very important to protect the CTO function to do this. Something I learned very, very early on, one of my engineering classmates started a hardware company and said, hey, Dave, I need a software person. So I left my university position to go help him. And they said, come on to one of our extreme design workshops. This is way before the extreme with an X. In the sort of early 80s, and we were building process control equipment and so on, and STD and VME hardware. And basically, this process is very simple. Marketing needed to do, and sales needed to do bids, basically for projects like a side-looking radar or a laser printer or manufacturing, high-performance data system. And we would have to design the hardware and the software. And of course, these like impossible to estimate sort of things. And what they would do is say, hey, we've got a dinner for you tonight. All right, so there'd be these longish 4-hour dinners, which always seemed to come with lots of either a whiteboard or a big easel with lots of paper. And they would go, so what we have to do is build this side-looking radar. And I'm there like, what the hell is a side-looking radar? And, in 4 or 5 hours, people would go through, they'd sketch the architecture on the board or on napkins. Often it was just a big table with lots of big squared paper on it. And we'd do this, and we'd estimate how long it would take us to build it and what the cost would be, in ranges, of course, safe estimates. And it was actually scary how close we were. But what was the real important benefit of extreme design? It was that we figured out there were parts which had big question marks on them that we didn't understand. And that happened in 2 or 3 hours. Versus, we found out later there was something else called analysis that you were supposed to do, right? Where you go off and study it and do analysis. These extreme design workshops, still to this day, for unknown problems, do amazing things because you learn what you know and what you don't know. So I really recommend you look at those. Discipline delivery, I think we all know lots about that. You cannot be held hostage. The biggest thing that among CEO and CTO events that I around the world is basically when you talk to people and say, okay, what was your biggest problem this year? And everybody says, okay, all recorders off, no notes. I wasted too much time on my bad people and eventually terminated them. And I lost 2 good people because I didn't invest in them. Very important. And that's another big thing for playing coaches. And the CTO role in large companies is replicated or scaled by doing something called having distinguished engineers or principal engineers, who are the playing coaches that walk around within those divisions. And this in manufacturing is known as I think it's management by walking around. But the best factories, you find really talented senior engineers who are walking the floor, talking and pairing with other engineers. So the distinguished engineering role is a very, very important one. And in some cases, it's kind of the way to practice to become it's the step on the way to becoming a CTO. So if you don't have a distinguished engineering role, it means that you can actually be paid like a vice president, but not have a whole lot of people reporting to you. Who doesn't want that job? The other thing we found when you're building new products, I have a phrase which I'm not too proud of called shut up and ship. Those who ship get to speak. When you're working on something cool and it's doing some new things and you start talking about it too early, it's going to be great. And then Mary comes out of the audience and says, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to do like a concurrent garbage collector? And of course, you weren't doing a concurrent garbage. They said, well, we're actually considering that because you don't want to look like you're doing this new product that isn't cool. And all of a sudden, you feature creep your own product and you jinx it. So I always tell people, look, let's celebrate and talk about how great it is, do the talk on how well it works after we've actually got it shipped to the customers. I've seen a number of companies basically talk themselves into a product that they can't actually ship and then get very embarrassed. So beware the power of the humble developer and shut up and ship. Social engineering, I think we've all talked about this problem. We know that software is all about people. Having diversity is very important. When I look at companies like Microsoft and Google that hire homogeneous people by doing puzzles at the board, it's no surprise that they have dysfunctional management when these people grow up from coders and doing this. Computational diversity, social diversity, having our best VM guy is a biologist who accidentally started learning computing. Having people coming from different perspectives is just of immense value, and it's highly underrated. And today, domain knowledge is king. Technology is everywhere, it's pervasive today. It's actually understanding deeply the customer's problems and domains is very important. So if you have someone, in Agile we have this wonderful notion of the product owner, but most of them are project managers called product owners. You really want someone that lives deep in the organization. I mentioned some things about people where, particularly hiring other people. You also want to avoid the fashion followers, right? You know this, if you've got somebody who knows what the latest framework is and just has worked with, whatever the latest thing is. I think Alan was telling me it's some sort of, React thing, algebraic, interactors or something other. I was just talking over a drink last night. If somebody knows all the latest stuff, they're probably actually not doing much useful work. We keep a lot of metrics. I'm not a fan of being the metric police, but we can actually do our R&D tax credits from our track record of developer metrics and Git pulls, what they're working on and so on. They're very accurate. We cross-correlate them. At IBM, I did a study which wasn't very popular. I guess I wasn't very popular at IBM anyway, where I pulled all the Lotus Notes database and produced a measure of how much time was actually being spent in meetings at IBM. My metric for meetings is 1 over meetings, and basically we multiply that times your bonus. So 1 meeting a year, you get full bonus. I have observed that Slack messages and other things, unfortunately, there are often people who spend a lot of time on these things and not nearly enough time quietly thinking. Try and avoid those sorts of people. I'm sure you know that. The other thing I've learned working with really bright developers is when developers send me messages that should not be allowed with words in them, that they're actually not meaning what they say. They actually care so passionately about something, and often they're so upset with themselves for what they're doing or what their team's been doing. So I just delete the message and actually try and sit with them and find out what the real problem is. And the secret for leadership that I share with you is that having time to sit and listen to people is really the biggest gift you can give. No matter where it is, if they can stop you in the hall, send you a note. So we would guarantee that basically if you wanted to talk to someone and you said, you could say this week, this month, today, that it was the executives in the business, didn't matter if it was a CFO if they wanted to talk to, who would, but a particular CTO, you would find the time for them. Surprisingly enough, these go down because all of a sudden they have a trust when they can get an answer when they need it, when they know they can talk to someone senior when they need it. All of a sudden, there were less of these, there were less meetings. So it's very important, and it allows you to keep the organization lean, because otherwise you put all these impedance layers in between called management. And if you're really unlucky and your company had a bad time, they will put in a whole lot of professional management, which means you're really screwed, because they'll fill them with 2 layers of passive-aggressive people that are very hard to take out. So what you want to do is make sure your organization is very efficient and very lean, because if you do slip on those engineering deliveries, or you do slip and not be able to produce a vision, the effect on your company is really negative. So live in fear of that happening, so make those changes early, disrupt your organization early so that you don't have to go through the hell of having your VC or your board bring in professional management. Because in most cases, when the professional management comes, the CTO function is disabled for many years. I think I'm done, so I should stop at this point. Successful companies, it's a culture, not a process, and you have a great culture when people just do it. They don't have to get educated. Here's our culture, here's how you do. You just feel it. And you can tell that it's just a group of developers with the keyboards flying and they just love building software together. There's nothing better, no better privilege than to work with talented young people and super talented old people to do that. And we have a real problem with prejudice in hiring older people who bring wisdom. And I strongly encourage you, I'm not looking for work, even because I'm so old that I'm useless. But you know, look around for those people with the experience, right? They can bring, and please, please do not believe your own bullshit. Bring in people from outside, send your people to conferences. Clearly you all exhibit the curiosity that's essential, but you know, if you don't have someone that's an expert in this, please go hire that expert or 2 or 3 of them and get their opinion. You can bring them in on a Zoom conference and find out from the 3 best people in the world for $5,000 whether or not this is a good idea, versus spending weeks or months trying to do your own experiments and having 3 people whose technical egos can't get along try and convince you go one way or the other. Thank you very much for your time.
Awesome.